In this vial, I have the secret to infinite power for your FPV quads. I'm going to take some of this, I'm going to put it in this magic bag, and we're going to make something happen. But safety first. And now with my safety gear on, I'm going to take this prop, put it in this bag. I'm going to put this vial of mysterious liquid into this bag, and out will come the secret to unlimited quad power. Here it is. No. Hey everybody, I'm Bacon Ninja, and today we're going to talk about these freaking toroidal props. These are the Foxeer Donut, and they are, to my knowledge, the first mass-produced toroidal prop since the whole toroidal prop craze. And if you didn't hear about the toroidal prop craze, you're probably lucky, because it was all over Facebook. Everybody was making these funny-looking, weirdly shaped props out of cylindrical things in a toroidal shape, because someone at a college said it was a cool idea. And the whole point of it is that they're supposed to be more efficient and give you much less noise output than traditional props, like this 3-bladed Ethix Radberry that I have in my hand. This is what I usually fly on my quads. And today, I'm going to show you me flying on these toroidal thingamabobs so you can decide for yourself if it's something you want to do. But just to give you the lowdown on what they are. The Foxeer Donut is a 5.1-inch polycarbonate prop with a 4.5-inch pitch using a very elongated toroidal layout. And they come in this tealish blue or a black variant for about $4, which is pretty average. But should you buy the things? Just because they're an infinity symbol of a prop, does that mean you will get infinity power on your quad for infinity less noise? Well, that's what we're going to get to. I usually fly these props. These are the Ethix Radberries. These are a tri-blade 5.1-inch prop with a 3.5-inch pitch, so significantly less pitch than the Foxeer Donuts. This is my average prop. This prop weighs 3.5 grams. Okie dokie, it's not the heaviest prop in the world, it's also not the lightest. HQ tends to be on the lighter side of things, and Ethix is HQ after all. These Foxeer Donuts are 4.3 grams, which leads me to believe that possibly there's going to be a motor response problem with this heavy honkin' prop on top of my motors. And which motors are those, you might ask? To test all of this, I used my handy-dandy Siren Mini Split. This is the F5 Split Mini from Quadmula, and you can see I have my toroidal props on here. Now, I am running higher kV motors on 6S than typical. These are RC Empower GTSV3 2107 2080 kV motors? I can't really read it. It's super small, and I'm getting older by the day. Anyway, they're higher kV motors than what you find typically on a 6S quad. So I was hoping that it would make up for a little bit of the response. But yeah, we're going to see that in a minute. The first thing I'm going to show you is some cruisy flights, because we're going to talk about the efficiency and that prop response. And as you can see, it cruises pretty well. It doesn't go blazingly fast, even though this is a 4.5-inch pitch prop, because I'm going to say it equates to kind of the thrust output of a bi-blade rather than a quad blade. There are 4 vanes on this prop, but it feels like flying bi-blades. I would also say that the response during cruise for the motors is pretty reasonable. I didn't feel a lot of difference between this prop and the Radberries as far as wobbling or not being able to change motor speed consistently, even though I was changing throttle position. Which kind of surprised me given there's so much weight difference between these props, but I think I know why. A, I'm running higher kV motors than usual, so I'm kind of at an advantage there, but even given that, a lot of the weight on a prop like this is in the vane. It's pretty thick here, and it retains its rigidity pretty well out to the tip. So there's a lot of polycarbonate weight that gets pushed out to the edge, where the hub is a little bit of weight, but it's not an intense amount. However, on the Donut, it seems like a lot of the weight is in the hub. That is a chunky hub there. And if you get out to the edges, it is very, very thin. So there's not a lot of weight retained in the polycarbonate out toward the edge, and I think it's containing a lot of weight toward the center of gravity right where the shaft is. And because the gravity isn't pulling out from the moment arm where all the weight is, I don't think we're getting a whole lot of motor response problems. I think that is the case, and it flew pretty well. But to prove it, the real test is how well does it spang? Because if you're a stupid Bacon Ninja, you're going to spang this silly little infinity symbol prop as hard as you can, just because you can do it. I'm a Spang pilot. I fly open fields. That's all I have out here in the deserts of Texas. To make it interesting, it's kind of sad. But put on your barf bag, because I did take these a spangin'. And to my surprise, it does the flippities, and it does the floppities, and it does them just fine. Totally fine. Absolutely, totally fine. I was expecting a whole lot worse performance in this kind of flight with these props. I was kind of expecting to make them feel like it was bi-blades, where I wouldn't have the grip in the air that I would normally have, and I would get far less motor response, because I'm going from zero throttle to full throttle a lot, doing a lot of air braking and a lot of rewinding, and it's just catching the quad fine, and it's gripping the line that I want it to take. It's doing a really good job, actually, which is absolutely not what I thought it was going to do. I was ready for this to be terrible. I was actually ready to destroy a GoPro by hitting random things, because I just figured it was going to flop out of the air. I figured we were going to get such bad motor response that I was probably going to death roll, and I was going to have to walk and get the quad. That is honestly what I thought was going to happen. Instead, it just did what I told it to do. It did it just fine. I had no problems at all, and if anything, it was just a hair smoother than when I do that same thing on the Radberries. If this was a 3-inch prop, a 3-blade prop, not a 3-inch prop, thank God it's not a 3-inch prop. If it was a 3-blade prop, I would probably switch to it. It feels really, really good. But, toroidal props, if you remember the hype, the reason why people said these were good: A, efficiency, and B, noise output. Well, what are those two things actually like? Let's start with noise output. Here's some audio output from my GoPro on top of the quad running a normal 5.1-inch prop. You can hear it's kind of a high pitch, there's obviously a lot of noise output, and we're on the quad itself, so we're hearing it right where it's happening. But here is a comparable noise output when I'm running the donuts. You can tell the pitch is significantly lower, but the quantity of noise isn't necessarily any lower at all. And that's really what it came down to with ye olde ears listening to it. The pitch was lower, which meant that it actually traveled further. I was actually very surprised by reflections off of buildings. Places that I've flown before with buildings with normal props, I am used to about how loud it is when it reflects off the building where I'm standing. I typically stand in the same spot every time because I know what my reception is like. When I flew by the same building with the donuts on, I was surprised at how much louder that reflection was, because the lower frequency travels further, and the output of noise in decibels seems to be about the same. Again, my fleshy human ears are only so good at sensing these things, and I don't have any meters for it, but I can tell you I heard these a lot more and a lot further away. It wasn't as threatening if you didn't know what the noise was. It's more like a small herd of bumblebees compared to a large herd of wasps. It's less threatening sounding, but it does travel. So just expect that if you use these, you will hear them further away, most likely, and just as loud as any prop you've ever heard. So chalk one down for the audio level on toroidal props. As best I can tell on these, anyway, this particular design, that is not something that does anything. But let's talk about the other one, efficiency. And to relate efficiency, all I really have to compare is battery life. And unfortunately, in a 5.1-inch prop, there's very little efficiency difference. If anything, I got less flight time on these simply because they weigh more, which means that I have to draw more amps out of the pack, which means the pack gets hotter, which means the resistance goes up, and the domino effect also means that my flight time goes down. Now, it wasn't significant. It wasn't an amazing amount of flight time that I lost where I was crying after 2 minutes. No, but it was noticeable, and I think that would be a trend in anything 5-inch for this. If you're going to want efficiency in 5-inch, then go with bi-blades. It actually does better than these. Where I think these would shine for efficiency, though, is in 6 and 7-inch long range. Because the longer these are, the bigger they are, the more efficiency gain you get from the toroidal design, and the better it would be. If you want to do something like a 6-inch lithium-ion or a 7-inch lithium-ion cruiser, a 7-inch version of this would probably be a big difference, honestly. And it would mean that the frequency would come down even lower from the pitch, even though it would still put out a lot of noise, which means that it may be less noticeable since it's lower down in a lower register, even lower than the 5-inch. We just have to see. As far as I know, there aren't any plans to make them in larger, and I haven't seen any. So yeah, it might happen someday. Where this would also probably be good is something like a 4-inch long-range cruiser. You wouldn't gain anything for the pitch change probably, and I don't know if we can make 4-inch because of this little nightmare right here, which is the next problem we need to talk about. This is what's wrong with this prop. This little stinking piece of plastic at the end. Because when you break that, and you will break it, by the way, every time you crash one of these, there's a good chance you'll break it. And if you don't break it, what you will do is bend it. Look how easy that flexes. Let me see if you can hear this. Okay, I'm exacerbating that a little bit so you can hear it, but just from doing that, I don't know if you can see it on camera. You can probably see it at that angle. Do you see that crease right there? That's just from reflexing the prop tip. If you don't crack it in half, you will crease it, and you will not be able to fly it back, and if you do, you can't bend it back. If you do happen to crack it in half, what happens is these two tips become separated, and in flight, they will start to vibrate. And when they start to vibrate, your quad will vibrate. And when your quad vibrates to that level, it will either A, fall out of the air, B, fly up to the sky forever, or C, burn a motor. So you decide which one you want it to be. And if you're lucky enough that it doesn't break, it will probably crease. So you'll be at least putting a new prop on, and that's $1, considering these are $4 props for a set. So hopefully you have lots of dollar bills, and all your singles are going to this instead of the club, if you know what I mean, guys. No more making it hail. You're dropping full Washingtons here for these props. That's the problem. You cannot freestyle these things. These are not made for freestyle at all. If you crash them, you are screwed. I can't explain to you enough how screwed you are if you crash these. Absolutely screwed. If you think you're going to take these out to a bando and do like a turtle on top of a roof to get you home, nope, you're screwed. Unless you have a ladder to go pick it up, I wouldn't fly it back. I just wouldn't. I wouldn't risk it unless you like burning motors. If you like the smell of burnt enamel, these might be the props for you. It's really cool. It's totally a gimmick. Absolutely 100% a gimmick. This is a cool thing to try because it's a weird shape that some doctor scientist somewhere said was cool, and they're not wrong. It's very cool for the thing they're using it for, which is a very small subset of reasons in a certain subset of sizes. This particular thing was built to appease the FPV community's interest in toroidal props because we all went nuts on Facebook about it. And honestly, thanks Foxeer for doing that. It's totally cool that you put the R&D in to make us a polycarbonate version of something we were begging for, even though we had no idea why we were begging for it, because we were not able to try it until you did this. And if you remember back to that craze, if you were around for that craze, everybody who printed them exploded them. This one doesn't explode till you hit something, so at least we're a leg up there. But should you buy these and put them on your quad? Well, no. Not the 5.1 inches, you shouldn't. If they make a 7-inch version of this, heck yeah, you should put it on your 7-inch, because you're not planning on crashing that thing anyway, and you want the most efficiency you can get. It's a perfect scenario for it. But 5.1 inch for freestyle? Hell no. Do not put these on your quad and try to freestyle. I did it so you don't have to. And the patrons paid for it, so they had to. That's the way it works around here. I do something stupid, so you learn something not to do. And this is one of them. Now, I will say, if you get the opportunity to pick up a set of these, it's fun to play with. Just don't do it in a way that's unsafe where you're going to lose your quad. Don't have expectations of these props that they cannot fulfill, because I guarantee you, when you hit something with it, you will break it. Have that expectation and you're going to be just fine. It's fun to fly with. I have 3 sets of these. I did break a lot of them. None of them flew apart on me, thank goodness. But I did have a lot of really hot motors returning after crashes because I did it intentionally and didn't go walk, just so I could see what would happen. Don't be like me. Go walk and get the quad, or just don't run these, or just don't ever crash. If you're that guy that doesn't ever crash, these might be perfect for you. Because in all honesty, they felt really, really good. In flight, they were way more than I was expecting. It was honestly a really good flight feel. If I could find a 3-inch prop that did exactly the same things as this with the thrust band, hell, even the lower pitch noise, I kind of like that a little bit. I would totally run it. This is about as close as I found for the kind of quad that I like to fly. But if they did this in a tri-blade with the same properties and could get that same feel out of it, I would totally switch to it. I'm not going to switch to these though, because like I said, you shouldn't do it. So don't do it. Anyway, that's all I have. Let me know in the comments below if you were into the toroidal prop craze. If you got in on that hype train and we're totally looking forward to the donuts. Let me know in the comments below if you've tried the donuts or you printed your own toroidal props. Tell me what your experiences were with that. Maybe I'm totally wrong. Go down in the comments below and explain to me why I'm stupid. Everybody seems to like to do that, so get in on that while you can. I'm opening up the possibilities now. Anyway, try some toroidal props if you get a chance. If not, just use what we know works and something you can bend back whenever it hobbles itself back to you, because that's the safest bet. But until next time, stay greasy, and I'll catch you later. Safety first, kids! There's no more of my infinity serum left, though. Oh, there's one little drop. Let's see what happens to Bacon whenever he takes infinity serum. It's just fruit punch. I literally put high C in there. There's no infinity. My nose is really uncomfortable.